Hello, hello, hello. My name's Elder, and welcome back to the Open Debate. Thank you for tuning in the afternoon, the morning, the evening, whenever you happen to be here. Essentially, what we're doing is just here with my friend Matt, and we're just going to be watching the Democratic debates here, live, the third 2020 Democratic presidential debates from Houston. We'll have the chat going on in the description. The mic's going to be turned off for the most part, but I will be tuning in and chiming in. We'll be giving our description as we go. So, that's what's happening.
Still mourns the lives lost in El Paso and Midland and Odessa. Change is coming because Republicans would have you believe that gun violence is inevitable. We all know that it is not. Republicans could join us today to pass laws that would stop the shooting, the killing, and the maiming tomorrow. But they refuse to listen to anybody except for the NRA. Too many families do not have access to critical health care. We believe as Democrats that health care is a fundamental human right and not a privilege only for those who can afford it. We cannot, and change is coming, because we cannot allow Donald Trump to continue to tear families apart, to take children away from their parents, to lock up our children in cages, to treat them like prisoners just because they are fleeing from violence. Change is coming because America is better than that. We are better than that. We are demanding change. There is a saying in Spanish that goes, no me den nada, nada más póngame donde hay. In East Texas, we say, put the jelly jar in the lower shelf so the little people can get to it. We all our families deserve a fair shot. Today, in Texas, many families fear for their future, for their loved ones, and for their lives. Democrats are fighting to change all of that. We believe that in this great country, we are here to help our neighbors. We welcome, we embrace, and we overcome. When God put us in this world, she gave us a charge. She said that when you leave this world, leave it better than what it was when you came to it. Well, we aim to do that. Texas Democrats, Texas is the biggest battleground state in the country. We are ready for 2020. Let's take back the Texas House. Let's send more Democrats to Congress. Let's take out John Cornyn. And let's elect a Democratic president to the United States. Let's turn Texas blue. This is our moment. This is our opportunity. Texas families are depending upon us, and we will succeed. Buenas noches, Texas Demócratas. Good night. And let me bring up the chair of the Democratic National Committee, our friend, America's friend, Chairman Tom Pettis.
Good evening, Democrats. Hey, good evening, Democrats. All right. Thank you. Mayor Turner, thank you for your hospitality. Mr. President, thank you for your hospitality. I love this university. So much spirit here. Thank you, students. You're going to be our boss. It's great to be here in the incredible city of Houston at one of our nation's preeminent HBCUs. I want to say thank you to everybody again moving forward at this great university, this remarkable place. And I want to say a special thanks to our members of Congress who are here. You know all the graduates, Barbara Jordan and others who've been here, but we also have our members of Congress my friend Al Green, graduate of this great university. I want to say a special thanks to Sheila Jackson Lee, member of Congress in whose district this stands. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Jackson Lee, for all you've done. I'd like to ask all the members of Congress to stand up who are here tonight. I want to thank all of them who are here. Please stand up so I can thank you. Congressman Cuellar, Sylvia Garcia, Al Green, Lizzie Fletcher. Where are you, Lizzie? There she is. Veronica Escobar, Joaquin Castro, and Henry Cuellar. Thank you for what you're doing. If you're other members of Congress here, thank you as well for what you're doing. Thank you for delivering for America in the United States House of Representatives. Thank you for holding this president accountable. And it's great to be in this battleground state. And let me reiterate, this is a battleground, my friends. And don't take my word for it. Don't take my word for it. Look at the numbers. Democrats made huge gains here in 2018, flipping 2 congressional seats, electing the first 2 Latinas to represent Texas in Congress, 12 state house seats, 2 state Senate seats. We shattered Democratic midterm turnout records, even in those deep red districts. 800,000 more Latinos voted in 2018 than in 2014, nearly doubling their turnout. Remember, my friends, nuestro voto es nuestra voz. Right here in Harris County, under the able leadership of your remarkable party chair, we made record-breaking gains in voter participation in 2016 and then again in 2018. In fact, 2018 was the first time in history that more than 1 million Harris County voters cast a midterm ballot. That is remarkable. I remember a few years ago when I was suing Texas left and right from the Civil Rights Division, because y'all were a full employment act for civil rights lawyers. People were counting out Texas Democrats. Now, thanks to the leadership of Democrats like Gilberto Hinojosa and others, we are on the verge of taking back the majority. 9 seats, folks. 9 seats is what we have to win, and we will take back the House. Why is that important? That is really important, folks, for redistricting. So our progress is unmistakable, and the pathway forward is equally unmistakable. When we invest in every year, every county, we will continue to make progress and turn Texas blue. And in 2020, we have even more opportunities. John Cornyn has a lower approval rating than Ted Cruz. And we have a deep bench of candidates, as you know. You know, a few years ago, this is a true story, there was a poll that said that Congress was less popular than traffic jams and root canals. Now, if you ask me, John Cornyn is worse than getting stuck in a traffic jam on the way to a root canal. And there's a reason why we're seeing this massive texodus of Republicans. Why is there this texodus? You know why? Because they no longer want to defend the indefensible. They understand that they can't do it. We are indeed at a moral fork in the road. Everything we care about is at stake. Just look at the issue of gun violence. And no one knows this dark reality better than the victims and their families who are here tonight. Could you raise your hand if you are here tonight, a victim or family member who's experienced gun violence? Thank you, everyone, for your courage. Thank you for speaking out. Thank you. We will never forget you. We will keep fighting for you. This is an epidemic in this country.
I'm not going to pause it, but I'll turn it down. So, yeah, what do you guys think about that texodus? This massive texodus that he's speaking of? There's a few people in the chat now, so why don't you guys get into the conversation? What do you guys think about this? Who do you think is going to become the new Democratic leader, the leader of the Democratic Party, if anyone will shine through? And do you think Donald Trump is going to smash these people, or do you think that they're going to win out overall? What do you think here, Matt?
Well, I might be being a Trumpy there.
A Trumpy, yeah.
Trumpy.
Yeah. Yep. There may be some Trumpies in the chat. If you're a Trumpy, a Trumper, a Trumpet, let us know. He's going to drink the Trumpy. He'll cheers to that. But yeah, we just want to know what you're saying and what you think about what's going on so far. It's just starting out. I mean, it started a while ago, but we're just starting out. So let's get the conversation going, guys.
Republican governor of gun laws in Texas. He wants more guns in schools, in homes, and places of worship. Governor Abbott, shame on you. That's disgraceful. Speaker Pelosi, Congresswoman Jackson Lee, and all of our other Congress members, thank you for doing your job on gun violence in the United States House of Representatives.
We can't tell you who we're voting for. We can't tell you who we're voting for or anything because that's a secret. It's a very under lock and key. It's something that is something that you should never tell anybody, right? You should never. No peeking behind the screen. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have my opinion formed yet. You gotta fully form it. Maybe it's for Donald Trump. Maybe it's for Tulsi Gabbard. Maybe it's for North Korea. But he also, as AOC said. As AOC said today in a radical tweet, Donald Trump sides with Kim Jong-un. That's the headline. And there was a headline that was similar to that, but it was...
Gets what he wants every time.
He's the leader of a fucking goddamn...
The wall being built?
Okay, now. Well, I think we're talking about two different things, so two different people. You're talking about Donald Trump, I'm talking about Kim Jong-un. Well, fuck that. Fuck him. Is it fuck him? Fuck who?
Right here in Texas roughly 2 years ago. And it made me think of Jesus Contreras, a paramedic, a dreamer, who worked nonstop for 6 days in the wake of Hurricane Harvey to save American lives. He was brought here when he was just 6 years old. It made a dreamer who made the ultimate sacrifice trying to rescue people here in Houston. Alonso, Dios te bendiga. And folks, it reminded me that for every horrific act of this president, there are thousands of helpers. On the darkest nights, you see the brightest stars. These helpers looking out for their neighbors. They are what's best about America, and they make me chronically optimistic about our future, folks. We have the most dangerous president in American history, but I come to you with unrelenting optimism. And you know what makes me so optimistic? Our incredible field of candidates for president, the most diverse field in American history. We have a bumper crop of candidates who share the same values that unite us all. Every single candidate on this stage wants to make sure that we have access to affordable health care for all, not just the wealthy few. They know that if you're more than one of the 10 million people with a pre-existing condition, you ought to be able to keep your health care. They understand that the Secretary of Education ought to believe in public education. They understand that when women succeed, America succeeds. They understand that our immigrant tradition is our best tradition. They understand that climate change is real. They understand that we do unto the least of us, we do unto us. That's what our candidates stand for. Those are our values. And I am so proud to be here tonight with you. And I hope you will join us tonight with these candidates where they will share their values with you and we will go on and win. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the singing of our national anthem, performed by TSU student Brianna Lindsay.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Ten candidates, one critical night. And now, right after the debate wraps, the candidates step into the spin room for their first live reaction to the debate.
I'm not even American, but I mean, you got to be respectful. That's what I was saying. Be respectful. Stand up. Salute. So, yeah. Salute. But yeah, yo, what do you guys think? You can see right now we got commercials playing, so we're not going to. Yeah, everybody bailed. So I stood up and did that whole patriotic salute. People will be back. We're into commercials now. Nobody's really talking, right? So, but let me know what you guys think. And I kind of feel as though that dude was a little bit erratic, a little bit too hyped up, and wasn't saying anything of value. But I could be completely wrong. Like I say every day, I may not have the answers. I'm just here to ask the questions. We're figuring it out as we go. We're just watching the debates and seeing what they have to say. I haven't seen anything too dramatic so far, but I haven't been watching it the entire time. So if you have watched it earlier and you saw something that is worth noting, then let us know what's going on. But as of right now, that dude just stopped talking. I honestly don't even know half of the Democratic candidates running because there are so many, and they all suck, in my opinion. No, they don't all suck. I'm just saying that.
We'll judge them after.
Yeah, we'll judge them. We'll judge them as they present themselves. But how do you all feel? What did you think that guy was like? What did you think he was saying?
Saying over and over more, guys. Like repeat themselves.
Yeah, don't open up that one. Yeah. But pretty much repeated himself, nonetheless.
He was definitely trying to hype you up, though.
He wanted us to feel. He wanted us to feel it. I wonder who's coming up on stage next.
I seen a lot of Strahan there.
A lot of what?
That first one, Michael Strahan.
Here we go. We're getting back into it, guys. Let's see what we're saying. Let's see what's going on.
George Stephanopoulos, David Muir, Lindsay Davis, and Jorge Ramos.
Here we go. Let's see what's up.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this great welcome here at Texas Southern. We are so excited to be here. We're so excited for the debate. I can tell you guys are as well, and now I have to do my job. The candidates have asked us to please try to keep the cheers under control because it's hard for them to hear when you cheer, and it also takes their time away. So I know you're excited. We are too, but do your best to keep it under control.
TSU. I am excited. You guys excited? All right, let's do this.
So it's great to be here in Houston. I know this is a difficult time. It's a difficult time for many Latinos. Vamos a hablar español en el debate también. Y nuestras voces se van a escuchar fuerte. Our voices are going to be heard really, really loud.
Thank you for inviting us to this beautiful, historic university. The candidates are all here right behind this screen. We can't wait to introduce them to you all. And vámonos, right?
Vámonos.
Okay.
Gracias.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
This is yours, right?
Ready, guys? Here we go. And now it's time for the candidates, beginning with the former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Julian Castro.
Here we go, here we go, here we go.
Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke.
Beto O'Rourke, my boy, my boy. Yeah, that's the one. That's the candidate. That's who I'm voting for. Is it?
Entrepreneur Andrew Yang.
Oh, this guy. Yeah, Yang Gang, Yang Gang.
California Senator Kamala Harris.
Yeah, the woman. She's a woman, so she'll get my vote.
Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Pocahontas, let's do it, let's do it.
Former Vice President Joe Biden.
Oh, creepy Uncle Joe, let's do it. Let's touch all the little girls.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders.
Out comes the Crypt Keeper. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get this show on the road.
Mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg.
I actually don't even know who that guy is.
New Jersey Senator Cory Booker.
I just said it. Cory Booker's a black guy, but Obama did it first. Yeah, right. The other girl. I don't know who she is.
Ladies and gentlemen, your 10 candidates.
10 candidates. There we go. Let's get it going, guys. Oh, what a terrible, terrible setup.
And you heard George Stephanopoulos say it right there. We are just minutes away from the Democratic debate right here on ABC. Matt, Dad, I want to start with you now in our lightning round. This is going to be the last round of the panel because we're minutes away from this debate. Matt, you told me earlier there's a lot of big, bold ideas from the Democrats we're seeing here on stage. But you said tonight candidates need to connect with people and voters on a personal level.
I think, isn't Cory Booker black? He looks black to me. What do you mean ABC's got a thing?
Where are they getting it from?
What, their host, their team?
No, the diversity.
Their diversity team? Yeah, they have one black woman, one white woman, one some sort of colored man, and then 3 white guys.
Just always one black woman.
There has to be a black woman. How do you guys think this is going to go? I just saw those candidates, and if that's what we're running with, then, I mean, come on now. I mean, who's playing games? Who's playing games here? Who out of those individuals do you think could stand up, not intellectually, right, but more so on the level of, if they were being bullied by Trump, who out of their...
Trump not make cry.
Exactly. And that's not even a good quality to have. It's something that you need to be a strong individual, a good leader, and if you have people that are going to be overshining and overpowering you in charisma and in the way that they present themselves, you're not going to be the leader of an entire nation.
What's caught fire
Personally, in my opinion.
You know, we predicted this, right? She was the one, unlike Biden, unlike Bernie, who already had a lot of name ID. Like, people knew her, but they didn't really know her. And now she's getting out there and people are getting to know her, her energy, her ideas, the fact that she connects personally. These are all the things we've talked about that people want to see. And so she's got a lot of energy. She knows how to talk to people and say, I've got a plan for that, and let me show you how I'm going to do it. And people want real solutions right now. People are suffering. We've talked about this. Healthcare costs are rising. People are concerned about climate. She's got answers on it, and not only that, but she connects it to the heart. And I think that's really why she's seeing a lot of momentum right now.
Senator Heitkamp, if you're fighting for your life tonight, do you need to go on the attack, or do you need to come out with a big idea?
No, I think ideas aren't what's going to win it. You need to show that you can command that stage with President Trump. This is a casting call for the Democratic candidate who is going to do the best job against Donald Trump, and that candidate is going to be somebody who is going to have the image of presidential capability and be able to stand up to Trump and actually win a debate against that president.
Devin, you're on the trail. Is that what voters are telling you? They want to hear how this Democrat can beat President Trump?
Yeah, and they want to hear the truth, Tom. In fact, you know, the past few days as we've been reporting around the suburbs here in Houston, they want what everyone said here. They want authenticity. They want
Now Matt's freaking out because someone in the chat said don't be homophobic, and he was like, what are you talking about? Who? I think one of the candidates might be gay, but we don't know. We don't care. It's not our business. It's not for us to care or think or decide.
Devotion to the truth, not winning the argument, but telling the truth. And I think that's what I've heard from voters.
And if you can't do that, fake it.
Or that. Fake it till
No,
you make it.
there is. Listen, I mean, President Clinton got the kid from Hope, and his story was relatable to where people were living their lives. President Obama was about the audacity of hope and what his candidacy embodied and what it meant for them in the country. And it is very important to relate to people and be relatable, where they can understand what is in here. They're going to pull the hood up, and we've seen it, all of us who've been helping candidates or run ourselves. People are going to, the voters that are watching tonight and thinking about becoming Democrats in this upcoming election, they're going to see what moves this. Not just the ideas, but what motivates that idea. Not just what that policy is to that problem, but why do you want to care about that? Why did you put that at the top of the list?
Mary Bruce, I want to go to you. You've been on the campaign trail as well. And something that strikes me, that sort of stands out to me, you have all these bold plans, these big ideas. You have candidates who talk about a generational shift, yet the three top-tier candidates are all in their 70s.
Exactly. It is surprising, given especially so much focus on younger voters, and yet you do. The top three candidates in the polls are all septuagenarians, and they are also getting some criticism for their age. It's one of the top questions, an issue that often comes out when you're talking with voters is, do they feel that these candidates can relate to them, can relate to younger voters, given this generational divide? But clearly it isn't hurting them in the polls. I have to tell you, though, Tom, this is a fairly young crowd, and they are pretty rowdy and fired up here. It's pretty remarkable. I think we were talking about the loudest chants that we heard actually were for the hometown candidates, Beto O'Rourke and Julian Castro.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm curious to see who will seize this particular moment, this particular place, right? There have been 3 mass shootings since the last debate, 2 in Texas. Gun control tonight. The racial divide in America. We're at one of the largest historically black colleges in the country and one of the most diverse cities in America. Who will seize upon those 2 things?
Look, I'm wishing the moderators good luck, too.
You've done this.
Trying to keep this crowd quiet, because so far they're pretty enthused and pretty excited about this tonight. It's one thing that I would say that we should all watch for, too. I know all those candidates are going to try and get the attention of the moderator in some way or another. It might be an eye roll. It might be raising the hand. We've seen this before. But the moderators have to kind of keep the peace there and figure out how to handle it.
And we're all expecting that big moment, you know, Warren versus Biden, Bernie versus Biden, the 2 of them ganging up on Biden. But I'll tell you, one word of caution here is the Democratic voters, you're out there talking to them almost every day. They want somebody that's going to take the fight to Donald Trump. They don't like the infighting among Democrats.
And you mentioned those 3 top contenders, the top tier right now. It's also those folks on the side, the flanks that we really have to watch. They need a moment. Castro needs a moment tonight. Harris definitely needs a moment. There's a lot on the line for her. She came out on fire after that first debate. Her poll numbers shot up, her endorsements shot up, her money shot up, and then she just sort of dropped and fell flat. She really needs to stay in this race for her. It's do or die right now.
There were a lot of applause for Beto O'Rourke, who's a hometown guy, right, from El Paso. But I know a lot of people in this room say, if you don't do well tonight, run for the Senate.
And it is a big question. The candidates on the wings, they want that moment, but they do have to pick that moment carefully because as we saw in the last debate, if you go too hard, you make too many attacks against one of the front runners, it can backfire. And then you have to be ready to capitalize on any big moment that you've had. We saw that with Harris, as you mentioned. She had that boost, but her campaign hasn't really been able to sustain it going forward.
They have to turn that moment into momentum, and some of them have been unable to do that, and that's what they're trying to do. And try to inspire, really try to reach people, and not just can you fight Donald Trump, can you bring the country together? Which candidate do they think can do that?
And differentiate yourself. That's the big factor tonight for so many of these folks on the stage.
So much for us to be keeping a close eye on. Well, the stage is set. The field has been narrowing slowly. Everyone down here is getting ready. Tom, back to you.
Thanks so much. Last final thoughts. What are you guys hoping to see tonight?
Well, the pass the torch arguments stick, Tom. We saw it in the first debate. The millennials and the Gen X candidates have been hanging out in the wings. Can they resurrect that argument?
I think that you're going to have two debates, not one debate. You're going to have obviously what will focus on the energy of Biden and Warren, but who's going to fill that third seat? And there's a lot of candidates for that third seat. When the music stops, only one of them are going to get that seat.
Big, bold ideas, energy, compassion. Will you take care of me? Will you solve my problems?
Watch the wings. See who emerges, who can challenge the top three.
We're an energy city. Houston's energy city, and a lot's going to depend on can the leaders keep the fuel in the gas tank, and can the outliers put more fuel in the tank to survive after tonight.
So much at stake. The 10 candidates for the first time on a single stage. Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Elizabeth Warren, also Senator Bernie Sanders. For the first time, we're going to watch this all play it live. We cannot wait for the excitement. It's just about to start. The candidates have taken to the podium right now. We are less than a minute away from all this action happening right on ABC News and, of course, on ABC News Live. Hulu streaming all across the world tonight. For one of the first times in the world, people can watch on their app and watch every moment by moment. Also a reminder, we have a big post-debate show as well with this powerhouse panel. We also have, on top of that, our team of reporters and correspondents upstairs as well for all the action that's happening there on the stage. And of course, we will be talking to the candidates live. We're expecting nearly all the candidates, if not all of them, to come right here to the spin room and talk with ABC News after the debates. Regardless if they have a big night, regardless if they have a bad night, we're going to press them and we're going to make sure to talk to them. For us, we're done here now in the spin room. Let's get down to the main room, the debate hall. Chief anchor George Stephanopoulos, he is 15 seconds away from a major night in politics. We thank you.
The stage is set. The field has been narrowed for one night only. The top 10 candidates are here. Our Democratic primary debate starts right now.
This is an ABC News special.
I will be a president for every American.
This is our moment.
Here we go, guys. We're getting into it. It's starting. We're getting ready. We're gonna start this debate. It's only what? It's been streaming for 3 hours now, and we're finally getting into it. But guess what? We're gonna find out who's the winner. Let's do this. Yeah, right? Finally getting there. All right, so we got the chat. Share with your friends, share with your family. Let everybody know what's happening tonight. We're hanging out in the chat here at the Open Debate, watching the Democratic debates.
George Stephanopoulos.
Good evening and welcome to Houston. We are live from Texas Southern University for tonight's Democratic debate. The top 10 candidates are here. It's going to start right now, and on the stage you see them. They have all met the criteria set by the Democratic National Committee. At least 10 others have not met the threshold. So for the first time in this primary, a single debate in a single night with all the top candidates facing off. It is a critical test for the candidates and their campaigns at a critical time for our country. They're going to lay out their vision for the country, their records, their differences with President Trump and each other. And we're going to do our best to bring you a lively, informative, and civil debate. I'm joined here tonight by my ABC colleague, World News Tonight anchor David Muir, our national correspondent Lindsay Davis, and Jorge Ramos from our partner network, Univision. Jorge?
George, thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to welcome Latinos across the country and to ask about Latinx issues during these challenging times. En este país también se habla español. Este debate Se realiza en un momento muy difícil para los latinos en Texas y en todo Estados Unidos, pero es importante que ellos sepan, que sepamos que este también es nuestro país. Let me just give you a little translation here. I'm telling Latinos that despite the fact that we are facing difficult times, this is our country too. Lindsay.
We are delighted to be on the beautiful campus of Texas Southern University, one of the largest historically black colleges and universities in the country. And here in the Health and Physical Education building tonight, we are joined by a live audience of 3,500 people, most invited by the Democratic National Committee, and of course, some of the brightest minds of the student body here at TSU. Go Tigers!
We can feel the energy in the room, can't we, Lindsay? The rules of this debate are very basic tonight and have been agreed to by all the campaigns in advance. Candidates will have 1 minute, 15 seconds to answer a direct question and 45 seconds for a rebuttal or response, as directed by one of the moderators. Candidates will each see green and yellow lights. There you see them right there, indicating how much time they have remaining.
Yeah, no.
And when
Okay.
time is up,
So it's pretty fucked up that they literally just started this whole thing off in Spanish, and that was one of the biggest problems people had with the last debate. So it's weird. What the hell were they just saying? We don't know. I don't know. I'm just trying to watch this thing. A lot of people have found it patronizing, disrespectful, but I love to know how you guys feel about it.
Good evening y bienvenidos a Texas. Welcome to Texas. It's great to be here at TSU, home of the Tigers. You know, on January 20th, 2021, at 12:01 p.m., we're going to have a Democratic president, a Democratic House, and a Democratic Senate. There will be life after Donald Trump. But the truth is that our problems didn't start just with Donald Trump, and we won't solve them by embracing old ideas. We need a bold vision. Universal pre-K and universal health care, unleashing millions of new jobs in the clean energy economy, a tax system that rewards people who have to work for a living. But first we have to win, and that means exciting a young, diverse coalition of Americans who are ready for a bold future. That's what Kennedy did. It's what Carter did. It's what Clinton did. It's what Barack Obama did. And it's what I can do in this race. Get back Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, Florida, Georgia, and Arizona, and finally turn Texas blue and say goodbye to Donald Trump.
Senator Klobuchar.
Good evening, Texas Southern. I believe that what unites us up here, the 10 of us, is much stronger than what divides us. And I think that's true of our country, too. Now, I may not be the loudest person up here, but I think we've already got that in the White House. Houston, we have a problem. We have a guy there that is literally running our country like a game show. He would rather lie than lead. I think we need something different. I am someone that tells the truth. I don't make promises that I can't keep. I have people's back, and I believe that to win, you bring people with you, and that is how you govern as well. So you're going to hear a lot of ideas up here. Some will be great, but if you see that some of them seem a little off track, I've got a better way. If you feel stuck in the middle of the extremes in our politics and you are tired of the noise and the nonsense, you've got a home with me. Because I don't want to be the president for half of America. I want to be the president for all of America.
Congressman Beto O'Rourke.
It's an honor to be on this debate stage. It is wonderful to be back in Texas, in Houston, back here at TSU. On August 3rd, in El Paso, Texas, two things became crystal clear for me and I think produced a turning point for this country. The first is just how dangerous Donald Trump is, the cost and the consequence of his presidency. A racism and violence that had long been a part of America was welcomed out into the open and directed to my hometown of El Paso, Texas, where 22 people were killed, dozens more grievously injured by a man carrying a weapon he should never have been able to buy in the first place, inspired to kill by our president. The second is how insufficient our politics is to meet the threat that we have right now. The bitterness, the pettiness, the smallness of the moment, the incentives to attack one another and try to make differences without distinctions, mountains out of molehills. We have to be bigger. We have to see clearly. We have to speak honestly, and we have to act decisively. That's what I want to do for you as President of the United States. Thank you.
Senator Cory Booker.
It was over 20 years ago that I was a law student and moved to inner city Newark, New Jersey to serve as a tenants' rights lawyer to try to address the challenges in my community. And I was sobered by them, the gun violence, the substandard housing. But it was my greatest mentor, a woman named Miss Virginia Jones, who challenged me. She said, boy, if all you see in this neighborhood is problems, that's all there's ever going to be. But if you're stubborn and defiant and can put forth a vision that can unify people, then we can make transformative change. She was a church woman that said, without vision, the people will perish. Well, that's exactly what we did. We created extraordinary unity in our community, and we did things that other people thought was impossible. That's the story of America. At our best, we unify. We find common cause and common purpose. The differences amongst us Democrats on the stage are not as great as the urgency for us to unite as a party, not just to beat Donald Trump, but to unite America in common cause and common purpose. That's why I'm running for president, and that's how I will lead this nation.
Entrepreneur Andrew Yang.
In America today, everything revolves around the almighty dollar. Our schools, our hospitals, our media, even our government. It's why we don't trust our institutions anymore. We have to get our country working for us again instead of the other way around. We have to see ourselves as the owners and shareholders of this democracy rather than inputs into a giant machine. When you donate money to a presidential campaign, what happens? The politician spends the money on TV ads and consultants, and you hope it works out. It's time to trust ourselves more than our politicians. That's why I'm going to do something unprecedented tonight. My campaign will now give a freedom dividend of $1,000 a month for an entire year to 10 American families, someone watching this at home right now. If you believe that you can solve your own problems better than any politician, go to yang2020.com and tell us how $1,000 a month will help you do just that. This is how we will get our country working for us again, the American people.
Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
It's original, I'll give you that. The American people are divided and doubtful at the very moment we need to rise to some of the greatest challenges we've ever seen. As a mayor of an industrial city coming back from the brink, as a veteran of the war in Afghanistan, I know what's at stake in our national leadership. We keep sending politicians to Washington, asking them to fight for us, but then when they get there, they seem more interested in the part about fighting than the part about us. Good politics is supposed to be not about the day-to-day fights of the politicians, but about the day-to-day lives of Americans. We just marked the anniversary of 9/11. All day today, I've been thinking about September 12th, the way it felt when for a moment we came together as a country. Imagine if we had been able to sustain that unity. Imagine what would be possible right now with ideas that are bold enough to meet the challenges of our time, but big enough as well that they could unify the American people. That's what presidential leadership can do. That's what the presidency is for, and that is why I'm asking for your vote.
Senator Kamala Harris.
Thank you. It's great to be back at TSU. So I plan on spending tonight talking with you about my plans to address the problems that keep you up at night. But first, I have a few words for Donald Trump, who we all know is watching. So President Trump, you've spent the last 2.5 years full-time trying to sow hate and division among us, and that is why we've gotten nothing done. You have used hate, intimidation, fear, and over 12,000 lies as a way to distract from your failed policies and your broken promises. The only reason you've not been indicted is because there was a memo in the Department of Justice that says a sitting president cannot be charged with a crime. But here's what you don't get. What you don't get is that the American people are so much better than this. And we know that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us, regardless of our race, where we live, or the party with which we're registered to vote. And I plan on focusing on our common issues, our common hopes and desires, and in that way unifying our country, winning this election, and turning the page for America. And now, President Trump, you can go back to watching Fox News.
Senator Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders.
Let me be blunt and tell you what you don't hear much about in Congress or in the media. And that is, it goes without saying that we must and will defeat Trump, the most dangerous president in the history of this country. But we must do more. We must do more. We have got to recognize that this country is moving into an oligarchic form of society where a handful of billionaires control the economic and political life of this country. And as president, I am prepared to take them on. Yes, we will raise the minimum wage to a living wage. Yes, we will finally make sure that every American has health care as a human right, not a privilege. And yes, we will address the catastrophic crisis of climate change and transform our energy system away from fossil fuel.
Senator Elizabeth Warren.
So I was born and raised in Oklahoma, but I'm sure glad to be in Texas tonight. All three of my brothers served in military bases here in Texas. That was their ticket to the middle class. Me, I got my big opportunity about a half mile down the road from here at the University of Houston, back when it cost $50 a semester. For a price that I could pay for on a part-time waitressing job, I got to finish my 4-year degree and I became a special needs teacher. And after law school, my first big job was back here in Houston. By then, I had 2 little kids, and when childcare nearly brought me down, my Aunt Bee moved in and saved us all. The paths to America's middle class have gotten a lot smaller and a lot narrower. Today, service members are preyed upon by predatory lenders. Students are crushed by debt, and families cannot afford childcare. I know what's broken, I know how to fix it, and I'm going to lead the fight to get it done.
Vice President Joe Biden.
You know, when President Kennedy announced the moonshot, he used a phrase that sticks with me my whole life. He said, we're doing it because we refuse to postpone. Well, I refuse to postpone one more minute, spending billions of dollars on curing cancer, Alzheimer's, and other diseases, which if we invest in them, we can find cures. I refuse to postpone giving every single child in America, no matter their zip code, pre-K all the way through high school and beyond. I refuse to postpone any longer taking on climate change and leading the world in taking on climate change. Look, this is the United States of America. There's never been a single solitary time when we've set our mind to something we've been unable to do it. We're walking around with our heads down like, woe is me. We're the best equipped nation in the world to take this on. It's no longer time to postpone. We should get moving. There's enormous, enormous opportunities once we get rid of Donald Trump.
Candidates, thank you. Several of you said you are more united than divided, and that is certainly true. All of you agree on one big thing, the goal of defeating President Trump, driving the country in a new direction. But out on the campaign trail, you have outlined big differences over how far to go and how fast to go. And Vice President Biden, the differences between you and the senators on either side of you tonight strike at the heart of this primary debate. Both Senators Warren and Sanders want to replace Obamacare with Medicare for all. You want to build on Obamacare, not scrap it. They propose spending far more than you to combat climate change and tackle student loan debt, and they would raise more in taxes than you to pay for their programs. Are Senators Warren and Sanders pushing too far, beyond where Democrats want to go and where the country needs to go?
That'll be for the voters to decide that question. Let me tell you what I think. I think we should have a debate on health care. I know that the senator says she's for Bernie. Well, I'm for Barack. I think the Obamacare worked. I think the way in which we add to it, replace everything that's been cut, add a public option, guarantee that everyone will be able to have affordable insurance, number one. Number two, I think we should be in a position of taking a look at what costs are. My plan for health care costs a lot of money. It costs $740 billion. It doesn't cost $30 trillion. $3.4 trillion a year, it turns out, is twice what the entire federal budget is. That's before it exists now, without interest on the debt. How are we going to pay for it? I want to hear tonight how that's happened. So as far, my distinguished friend, the senator on my left, has not indicated how she pays for it. And the senator has, in fact, come forward and said how he's going to pay for it, but it gets him about halfway there. There's a lot of other things that need to be done. I have a bold plan to deal with making sure we triple the money for at-risk schools that are Title I schools from 15 to $45 billion a year. But I go down the line, and each of the things we're talking about, I lay out how I can pay for it, how I can get it done.
That same admission.
How best can we improve on it? And I believe the best way we can do that is we make sure that everybody gets covered by health care at the lowest possible cost. How do we pay for it? We pay for it. Those at the very top, the richest individuals and the biggest corporations, are going to pay more. And middle-class families are going to pay less. That's how this is going to work.
Direct question. You said middle-class families are going to pay less, but will middle-class taxes go up to pay for the program? I know you believe that the deductibles and the premiums will go down. Will middle-class taxes go up? Will private insurance be eliminated?
Look, what families have to deal with is cost, total cost. That's what they have to deal with. And understand, families are paying for their health care today. Families pay every time an insurance company says, sorry, you can't see that specialist. Every time an insurance company says, sorry, that doctor is out of network. Sorry, we are not covering that prescription. Families are paying every time they don't get a prescription filled because they can't pay for it. They don't have a lump checked out because they can't afford the copay. What we're talking about here is what's going to happen in families' pockets, what's going to happen in their budgets. And the answer is on Medicare for all. Costs are going to go up for wealthier individuals, and costs are going to go up for giant corporations. But for hardworking families across this country, costs are going to go down, and that's how it should work under Medicare for all in our health care system.
Senator Sanders, you were invoked by the Vice President. Also take on that question about taxes.
Joe said that Medicare for all will cost over $30 trillion. That's right, Joe. Status quo over 10 years will be $50 trillion. Every study done shows that Medicare for all is the most cost-effective approach to providing health care to every man, woman, and child in this country. I, who wrote the damn bill, if I may say so, intend to eliminate all out-of-pocket expenses, all deductibles, all co-payments. Nobody in America will pay more than $200 a year for prescription drugs because we're going to stand up to the greed and corruption and price fixing of the pharmaceutical industry. We need a healthcare system that guarantees healthcare to all people, as every other major country does, not a system which provides $100 billion a year in profit for the drug companies and the insurance companies. And to tell you how absurd the system is, tonight on ABC, the healthcare industry will be advertising, telling you how bad Medicare for All is because they want to protect their profits. That is absurd.
Vice President Biden,
respond, George.
You get a response, and then we're going to broaden out the discussion.
Okay, number one, my health care plan does significantly cut the cost of it. The largest out-of-pocket payment you'll pay is $1,000. You'll be able to get into anyone who can't afford it gets automatically enrolled in the Medicare type option we have, et cetera. But guess what? Of the 160 million people who like their health care now, they can keep it. If they don't like it, they can leave, number one. Number two, the fact of the matter is we're in a situation where, if you notice, he hadn't answered the question. This is about candor, honesty, big ideas. Well, let's have a big idea. The tax of 2% that the senator's talking about, that raises about $3 billion. Guess what? That leaves you about $28 billion short. The senator said before it's going to cost you in your pay. There will be a deductible in your paycheck. You're going to, the middle class person, someone making 60 grand with 3 kids, they're going to end up paying $5,000 more. They're going to end up paying 4% more on their income tax. That's a reality. Now, it's not a bad idea if you like it. I don't like it.
Okay, now I want everybody to keep to the time, but you did invoke both senators. I have to get responses from them, and then we will run out.
Good.
Senator Warren, you go first.
So let's be clear. I've actually never met anybody who likes their health insurance company. I've met people who like their doctors. I've met people who like their nurses. I've met people who like their pharmacists. I've met people who like their physical therapists. What they want is access to health care. And we just need to be clear about what Medicare for All is all about. Instead of paying premiums into insurance companies and then having insurance companies build their profits by saying no to coverage, we're going to do this by saying everyone is covered by Medicare for All. Every health care provider is covered. And the only question here in terms of difference is where to send the bill.
Senator Sanders.
Let us be clear, Joe. In the United States of America, we are spending twice as much per capita on health care as the Canadians or any other major country on earth.
This is America.
Yeah, but Americans don't want to pay twice as much as other countries, and they guarantee health care to all people. Under my Medicare for All proposal, when you don't pay out of pocket and you don't pay premiums, maybe you have run into people who love their premiums. I haven't. What people want is cost-effective health care. Medicare for All will save the average American substantial sums of money on his or her health care bill.
Senator Klobuchar, you said in your opening statement you want to represent the people stuck in the middle of the extremes. Who represents the extreme on this stage?
I think you know that I don't agree with some of these proposals up here, George. So I'm talking
Which
about
ones?
if I could respond to some of the proposals from my friends. First of all, Senator Sanders and I have worked valiantly to bring down the cost of pharmaceuticals. That was a Klobuchar-Sanders amendment to allow for drugs to come in from less expensive countries like Canada. We have worked to bring down the cost by fighting to allow 43 million seniors, that's a bill I lead, to negotiate for better prices under Medicare. I figure that's a lot of seniors and they should be allowed to get a better price. But when it comes to our health care and when it comes to our premiums, I go with the doctor's creed, which is do no harm. And while Bernie wrote the bill, I read the bill. And on page 8 of the bill, it says that we will no longer have private insurance as we know it. And that means that 149 million Americans will no longer be able to have their current insurance. That's in 4 years. I don't think that's a bold idea. I think it's a bad idea. And what I favor is something that what Barack Obama wanted to do from the very beginning, and that is a public option, a nonprofit choice that will bring down the cost of insurance, cover 12 million more people, and bring down the prices for 13 million more people. That is a bold idea.
Senator Warren, page 8 of the bill, she says, 149 people will lose their health insurance.
I'm sorry.
She said page 8 of the bill, 149 people will lose their health insurance.
Look, current health insurance.
149 million.
Million, excuse me.
So let's be clear about this. People will have access to all of their doctors, all of their nurses, their community hospitals, their rural hospitals. Doctors won't have to hire people to fill out crazy forms. They won't have to spend time on the phone arguing with insurance companies. People who have sick family members won't have to get into these battles. What this is about is making sure that we have the most efficient way possible to pay for health care for everyone in this country. Insurance companies last year sucked $23 billion in profits out of the system. How did they make that money? Every one of those $23 billion was made by an insurance company saying no to your health care coverage.
Mayor Buttigieg.
The problem, Senator Sanders, with that damn bill that you wrote and that Senator Warren backs is that it doesn't trust the American people. I trust you to choose what makes the most sense for you, not my way or the highway. Now, look, I think we do have to go far beyond tinkering with the ACA. I propose Medicare for all who want it. We take a version of Medicare, we make it available for the American people, and if we're right, as progressives, that that public alternative is better, then the American people will figure that out for themselves. I trust the American people to make the right choice for them. Why don't you?
Senator Sanders, 45 seconds.
George, you talked about, was it 150 million people on private insurance? 50 million of those people lose their private insurance every year when they quit their jobs or when they go unemployed or their employer changes their insurance policy. Medicare for All is comprehensive health care, covers all basic needs, including home health care. It allows you to go to any doctor you want, which many private insurance company programs do not. So if you want comprehensive health care, freedom of choice regarding doctor or hospital, no more than $200 a year for prescription drugs, taking on the drug companies and the insurance companies, moving to Medicare for All is the way to go.
Senator Harris, you started out co-sponsoring Senator Sanders' bill. You now say you're uncomfortable with it. Why?
I want to give credit first to Barack Obama for really bringing us this far. We would not be here if he hadn't the courage, the talent, or the will to see us this far. I want to give credit to Bernie. Take credit, Bernie. You brought us this far, Medicare for All. I support Medicare for All, I always have, but I wanted to make the plan better, which I did, which is about offering people choice, not taking that from them. So under my Medicare for All plan, people have the choice of a private plan or a public plan because that's what people want. And I agree we shouldn't take choice from people. But here's the thing. Everybody on this stage, I do believe, is well-intentioned and wants that all Americans have coverage and recognizes that right now 30 million Americans don't have coverage. But at least 5 people have talked, some repeatedly, on this subject, and not once have we talked about Donald Trump. So let's talk about the fact that Donald Trump came into office and spent almost the entire first year of his term trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. We all fought against it, and then the late, great John McCain, at that moment at about 2 o'clock in the morning, killed his attempt to take health care from millions of people in this country. Fast forward to today, and what is happening? Donald Trump's Department of Justice is trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. Donald Trump's administration is trying to get rid of the ban that we placed on denying people who have pre-existing conditions coverage. Donald Trump is trying to say that our kids up to the age of 26 can no longer be on our plans. And frankly, I think this discussion has given the American public a headache. What they want to know is that they're going to have health care and cost will not be a barrier to getting it. But let's focus on the end goal. If we don't get Donald Trump out of office, he's going to get rid of all of it.
George, 15 seconds. 15 seconds.
Let me get to Congressman O'Rourke and then go ahead, Mr. Vice
15
President.
seconds. Look, everybody says we want an option. The option I'm proposing is a Medicare for all, Medicare for choice. If you want Medicare,
let's take a poll. Who thinks that
Everybody should
take some. There's not what?
Whoever's on your 26 is going to be,
Yeah, if everybody wants. Do you think that people should look after their children up to the age of 26?
They're always going to look after their children. But as of 19, most 18 Canada, we've got people. They're legally adults.
Let's take a vote. How many times do you think that they're going to mention Trump tonight?
Senator Sanders. Go ahead.
All right. 2 points. Yep. You got to defend the fact that today, not only do we have 87 million people uninsured and underinsured, you got to defend the fact that 500,000 Americans are going bankrupt. You know why they're going bankrupt? Because they suffered a terrible disease, cancer or heart disease. Under my legislation, people will not go into financial ruin because they suffered with a diagnosis of cancer. And our program is the only one that does that.
I know a lot about cancer. Let me tell you something. It's personal to me. Let me tell you something. Every single person who is diagnosed with cancer or any other disease can automatically become part of this plan. They will not go bankrupt because of that. They will not go bankrupt because of that. They can join immediately. And we're talking 4, 6, 8, 10 years, depending on who you talk about, before we get to Medicare for all. Come on. I've been there. You've been there. You know what it's like. People need help now, hope now, and do something now.
Congressman O'Rourke.
Yeah. Thank you. Listen, I'm grateful that we all agree about the urgency of this challenge and the fact that Donald Trump is undermining the limited protections that we have right now. But I also think we're being offered a false choice between those who propose an all-or-nothing gambit, forcing tens of millions off of insurance that they like, that works for them, to force them onto Medicare, and others who want to, as a vice president does, incrementally improve what we have, which will still leave many, maybe millions, uninsured and uncared for in a state like Texas, where the largest provider of mental health care services is the county jail system. We've got to do better. In my proposal, Medicare for America says everyone who's uninsured will be enrolled in Medicare. Everyone who's insufficiently insured, cannot afford it, can move over to Medicare. And those, like members of unions who fought for the health care plans that work for them and their families, are able to keep them. That is the best possible path forward.
Healthcare is the top issue for everyone in the country. I want to make sure everyone gets 1 minute to respond. So Secretary Castro, Andrew Yang, and then Senator Booker, you all get a minute.
Thank you. And, I also want to recognize the work that Bernie has done on this. And, of course, we owe a debt of gratitude to President Barack Obama. Of course, I also work for President Obama, Vice President Biden, and I know that the problem with your plan is that it leaves 10 million people uncovered. Now, on the last debate stage in Detroit, you said that wasn't true. When Senator Harris brought that up, there was a fact check of that, and they said that was true. I grew up with a grandmother who had type 2 diabetes, and I watched her condition get worse and worse. But that whole time, she had Medicare. I want every single American family to have a strong Medicare plan available. If they choose to hold on to strong, solid private health insurance, I believe they should be able to do that. But the difference between what I support and what you support, Vice President Biden, is that you require them to opt in. And I would not require them to opt in. They would automatically be enrolled. They wouldn't have to buy in. That's a big difference, because Barack Obama's vision was not to leave 10 million people uncovered. He wanted every single person in this country covered. My plan would do that. Your plan would not.
They do not have to buy in. They do not have to buy in.
You just said that. You just said that 2 minutes ago. You just said 2 minutes ago that they would have to buy in. You said they would have to buy in.
Have to buy in. If she qualifies for Medicaid,
are you forgetting what you said 2 minutes ago?
Be in for it.
Are you forgetting already repeat what you said just 2 minutes ago? I mean, I can't believe that you said 2 minutes ago that they had to buy in, and now you're saying they don't have to buy. You're forgetting that.
I said anyone
I mean,
like your
look,
grandmother who has no money.
We need a healthcare system
You're automatically
that
enrolled.
automatically enrolls people regardless of whether they choose to opt in or not. If you lose your job, for instance, his healthcare plan would not automatically enroll you. You would have to opt in. My healthcare plan would. That's a big difference. I'm fulfilling the legacy of Barack Obama, and you're not.
I'll be surprised to him.
Andrew Yang.
Shots fired. You hear that?
Debates are becoming unwatchable. This reminds everybody of what they cannot stand about Washington. Scoring points against each other, poking at each other, and telling each other that you're my plan, your plan. Look, we all
that's
have
called a
different
Democratic
visions for
primary
what is
election.
better about
That's
our
called an election. That's an election. You know, this is what we're here for. It's an election.
Yeah, but a house divided cannot stand. And that is not how we're
Look,
going to win
everyone,
this
we know we're on the same team here. We know we're on the same team. We all have a better vision for healthcare than our current president. And I believe we're talking about this the wrong way. As someone who has run a business, I know that our current healthcare system makes it harder to hire people, makes it harder to give them benefits and treat them as full-time employees. You instead pretend they're contractors. It's harder to change jobs. It's certainly harder to start a business. The pitch we have to make to the American people is we will get the healthcare weight off of your backs and then unleash the hopes and dreams of the American people.
Senator Booker.
Now, I am Asian, so I know a lot of doctors. And they tell me that they spend a lot of time on paperwork, avoiding being sued, and navigating the insurance bureaucracy. We have to change the incentives so instead of revenue and activity, people are focused on our health in the healthcare system. And the Cleveland Clinic, where they're paid not based upon how many procedures they prescribe, shocker, they prescribe fewer procedures, and patient health stays the same or improves. That is the pitch to the American people.
Senator Booker, close out this discussion.
Thank you very much. Look, there are a lot of people watching at home right now, listening to us, that are afraid because they are in crisis. They don't have health insurance. Their health insurance doesn't go far enough. They can't afford their prescription drugs. Look, I'm clear in what I believe. I believe in Medicare for all. I believe it's the best way to rationalize the system. But dear God, I know that every one of my colleagues on this stage is in favor of universal health coverage and comes at this with the best of intentions. And I'll tell you, there is an urgency right now in this nation. Everybody feels it. And as a person who has an ideal, I know we cannot sacrifice progress on the altar of purity. Because people in my community, they need help right now. They have high blood pressure right now. They have unaffordable insulin right now. And this must be a moment where we as Democrats can begin to show that we can not only stake and stand our ground, but find common ground, because we've got one shot to make Donald Trump a one-term president. And we cannot lose it by the way we talk about each other or demonize and degrade each other. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. If I am the leader, I will work towards the ideal of health insurance, health coverage being a right for all Americans. But every single day, I'll join with other Democrats to make progress happen in our nation for the people that are struggling and suffering today.
Candidates, thank you. Lindsay Davis.
Thanks, George. Since we're here at an HBCU, I'd like to start with young black voters. Several recent polls indicate their #1 concern is racism. This campus, this state, and this nation are still raw from that racially motivated attack on Latinos in El Paso. Now, we know that the racial divide started long before President Trump and President Obama, but each of you on this stage has said that President Trump has made that divide worse. Congressman O'Rourke, coming to you first, why are you the most qualified candidate to address this divide?
You know, I called this out in no uncertain terms on August 3rd and every day since then, and I was talking about it long before then as well. Racism in America is endemic. It is foundational. We can mark the creation of this country not at the 4th of July, 1776, but August 20th, 1619, when the first kidnapped African was brought to this country against his will and in bondage and as a slave, built the greatness and the success and the wealth that neither he nor his descendants would ever be able to fully participate in and enjoy. We have to be able to answer this challenge, and it is found in our education system, where in Texas, a 5-year-old child in kindergarten is 5 times as likely to be disciplined or suspended or expelled based on the color of their skin. In our healthcare system, where there's a maternal mortality crisis 3 times as deadly for women of color, or the fact that there's 10 times the wealth in white America than there is in black America. I'm going to follow Sheila Jackson Lee's lead and sign into law a reparations bill that will allow us to address this at its foundation.
White American, black American,
Reparations for all. I'm finally gonna figure out what the racial disparities really are in America. Here we go, guys.
This country.
Secretary Cashman, 45 seconds to respond.
You know, and, I want to commend Beto for how well he has spoken to the passion and the frustration and the sadness after what happened in his hometown of El Paso. He's done a great job with that. Look, a few weeks ago, a shooter drove 10 miles inspired by this 10 hours inspired by this president to kill people who look like me and people who look like my family. White supremacy is a growing threat to this country, and we have to root it out. I'm proud that I put forward a plan to disarm hate. I'm also proud that I was the first to put forward a police reform plan, because we're not going to have any more Laquan McDonald's or Eric Garners or Michael Browns or Pamela Turners or Walter Scott's or Sandra Bland here from the Houston area. We need to root out racism, and I believe that we can do that, because that doesn't represent the vast majority of Americans who do have a good heart. They also need a leader to match that, and I will be a president that matches that.
Senator Booker, you have said, quote, the real question isn't who is or isn't a racist, it's who's going to do something about it. Senator, what do you plan to do about it?
Well, first and foremost, I want to hit that point, because we know Donald Trump's a racist, but there is no red badge of courage for calling him that. When racism exists, the question isn't who isn't a racist, it's who is and isn't doing something about racism. And this is not just an issue that started yesterday. It's not just an issue that we hear a president that can't condemn white supremacy.
It's not about who is and isn't a racist. It's who is virtue signaling to the Democrats, showing that they are fighting to end racism. Because clearly, everyone has racial biases and racial tendencies inside their own skin. Shut the fuck up.
We have to come at this issue attacking systemic racism, having the courage to call it out, and having a plan to do something about it. If I am president of the United States, we will create an office in the White House to deal with the problem of white supremacy and hate crimes. And we will make sure that systemic racism is dealt with in substantive plans, from criminal justice reform to the disparities in healthcare, to even one that we don't talk about enough, which is the racism that we see in environmental injustice in communities of color all around this country.
Mayor Buttigieg, you've been struggling with issues around race in your own community. You've also said that anyone who votes to re-elect President Trump is at best looking the other way on racism. Does that sort of talk alienate voters and potentially deepen divisions in our country?
I believe what's deepened divisions in the country is the conduct of this president, and we have a chance to change all of that. Look, systemic racism preceded this president, and even when we defeat him, it will be with us. That's why we need a systemic approach to dismantle.
I've never even seen him before.
It's not enough to just take a racist policy, replace it with a neutral one, and expect things will just get better on their own.
They're all biased as fuck.
This is the guy I vote for. So does the dollar stolen. And we know that the generational theft
No, if I was Democratic as a leader, I'd vote for Trump to make crack.
to education, to health, to employment.
This guy won't even last half
Basically
a
puts us in two
fucking
different countries.
debate against
I've
Trump.
proposed the most comprehensive vision to tackle systemic racism in every
think?
one of these areas. Marshalling as many resources as went in.
There's more of them than just these. There's just 10.
This
Like
time,
21
Douglas
or
planned
more than
the
that?
best
Yeah.
right here at home. To make sure that we're not only dealing with things like the over-incarceration of black Americans, but also black solutions, entrepreneurship.
Bush have a son?
25% target for the federal government to do business with minority-owned
George Bush.
businesses. Investing in
Bush.
HBCUs that are
Third.
training and educating the next
George
generation
Bush
of
Jr.
entrepreneurs. We can and must
You
do
have a son?
that, but That means transcending this framework that pits us against Texas, that pits a single black mother of 3 against a displaced auto worker. Because where I come from, a lot of times that displaced auto worker is a
He's fucked up being president.
We've got to say that and bring people.
Her mic's on.
Also, a concern for people of color is
Whatever we're
justice
talking about.
reform.
He got impeached for that.
Senator Harris, you released your plan for that.
What everyone else you get away with,
It does
right?
contradict some of your prior positions. Among them, you used to oppose the legalization
Thanks
of
for letting us know.
marijuana. Now you don't. You used to oppose outside investigations of police shootings. Now you don't. You've said that you changed on these and other things because you were, quote, swimming against the current, and thankfully the currents have changed. But when you had the power, why didn't you try to affect change then?
So I'm glad you asked me this question, and there have been many distortions of my record. Let me be very clear. I made a decision to become a prosecutor for 2 reasons. One, I've always wanted to protect people and keep them safe. And second, I was born knowing about how this criminal justice system in America has worked in a way that has been informed by racial bias. And I could tell you extensively about the experiences I and my family members have personally had. But I made a decision that if I was going to have the ability to reform the system, I would try to do it from the inside. And so I took on the position that allowed me, without asking permission, to create one of the first in the nation initiatives that was a model and became a national model around people who were arrested for drugs and getting them jobs. I created one of the first in the nation requirements that a state law enforcement agency would have to wear cameras and keep them on full time. I created one of the first in the nation trainings for police officers on the issue of racial bias and the need to reform the system. Was I able to get enough done? Absolutely not. But my plan has been described by activists as being a bold and comprehensive plan that is about ending mass incarceration, about taking the profit out of the criminal justice system. I plan on shutting down for-profit prisons on day one. It will be about what we need to do to hold law enforcement, including prosecutors, accountable. And finally, my plan is about making sure that in America's criminal justice system, we de-incarcerate women and children, that we end solitary confinement, and that we work on keeping families intact. And as President of the United States, knowing the system from the inside, I will have the ability to be an effective leader and get this job complete.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Senator Klobuchar, during your 8 years as a prosecutor in Minnesota, there were dozens of incidents where black men were killed by police. Critics say that too often you sided with police in these cases. The ACLU's legal director in Minnesota has said that you showed no interest in racial justice. Do you wish now that you had done more?
That's not my record. We are here at a historically black college. And I think of an alum of that college, Barbara Jordan, and something that she once said. She said, what the people want is simple. They want a country as good as its promise. And that same can be said of the criminal justice system. So when I was there, the way we handled these police shootings, I actually took a stand to make sure outside investigators handled them. I took on our major police chief in Minneapolis. But in the prosecutor's office, they were handled with the grand jury. That's how they were all handled across our state. I now believe it is better for accountability if the prosecutor handles them and makes those decisions herself. That aside, I am proud of the work our staff did, 400 people in our office. The cases that came to us, the African-American community that came to us, they said there was no justice for their little kids. There was a kid named Byron Phillips that was shot on his front porch. No one had bothered to figure out who did it. When I came into that office, we worked with the community groups, we put up billboards, we found the shooter, and we put him in jail. We did the same for the killer of a little girl named Taisha Edwards, who was doing her homework at her kitchen table and was shot through the window. What changes did we make? Go after white-collar crimes in a big way. Diversify the office in a big way. Work with the Innocence Project to make sure we do much better with eyewitness ID. And as a senator and as your president, I will make sure that we don't just do the First Step Act when it comes to criminal sentencing, that we move to the Second Step Act, which means the 90% of people that are incarcerated in local and state jails, let's reduce those sentences for nonviolent offenders, and let's get them jobs and let them vote when they get out of prison.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. You all believe that the war on drugs has put too many Americans behind bars. Vice President Biden, you have a plan to release many nonviolent drug offenders from prison. Senator Booker says that your plan is not ambitious enough. Your response?
Well, first of all, let me say that when I came back from law school, I had a job with a big-time law firm. I left and became a public defender because my state was under siege. When Dr. King was assassinated, we were occupied by the National Guard for 10 months. I've been involved from the beginning. As a young congressman, as a young councilman, I introduced legislation to try to keep them putting a sewer plant in a poor neighborhood. I made sure that we dealt with redlining. Banks should have to lend where they operate, et cetera. The fact of the matter is that what's happened is that we're in a situation now where there are so many people who are in jail and shouldn't be in jail. The whole means by which this should change is the whole model has to change. We should be talking about rehabilitation. Nobody should be in jail for a nonviolent crime. As when we were in the White House, we released 36,000 people from the federal prison system. Nobody should be in jail for a drug problem. They should be going directly to a rehabilitation. We build more rehabilitation centers, not prisons. I'm the guy that put in the drug courts to divert people from the criminal justice system. And so we have to change the whole way we look at this. And we put people in prison, we have to equip them when they get out. Nobody who got in prison for marijuana, for example, immediately upon being released, they shouldn't be in there for that should be a misdemeanor. They should be out and their record should be expunged. Every single right should be returned. When you finish your term in prison, you should be able not only vote, but have access to Pell Grants, have access to be able to get housing, have access to be able to move along the way. I've laid out a detailed plan along those lines. And the fact is we've learned so much more.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Senator Booker, 45 seconds to respond.
Our criminal justice system is so savagely broken. There's no difference in America between blacks, whites, and Latinos for using drugs or dealing drugs. But if you're African American, you're almost 4 times more likely to be arrested and incarcerated, destroying your lives. And so much of this comes down to privilege. We have a criminal justice system that Brian
I know that I
says
keep
is
introducing, I know that I keep interrupting Cory Booker, but I mean, the scariest part of all this is the fact that any of these crazy individuals could be running the country if you were just to, you know, not put forth the effort to stop that from happening. So, what do you want for the next 4 years, 5 years? Well, you don't really have a choice for the next year, but 4 years.
Members of the United States Senate says that these sentences are way too long. And we changed it, but we didn't make it retroactive. We could literally point to the people that are in jail unjustly right now. Everyone on this stage should say that we are going to give clemency to these 17,000 people. And I challenge you, don't just say big statements, back it up with details of the people in prison right now looking for one of the most sacrosanct ideals of this nation, which is liberty and freedom. We need to reform this system, and we must do it now. Every day we wait is too long.
Thank you, Lindsey. I want to turn to the deadly mass shootings here in this country, and of course we are all mindful tonight of where we stand. We are here in Texas tonight, where 29 people have lost their lives in just the last month alone. El Paso, which we've discussed, in Odessa, and I know there are survivors from El Paso right here in the hall tonight. Vice President Biden, I do want to direct this to you because we all remember Sandy Hook. 26 people died in that school, 20 of them children. Those first graders would be in 8th grade today. At the time, there was a groundswell in this country to get something done. President Obama asked you to lead the push for gun control. You have often pointed to your ability to reach across the aisle to get things done. But 4 months after Sandy Hook, a measure to require expanded background checks died on the Senate floor. If you couldn't get it done after Sandy Hook, why should voters give you another chance?
Because it got done before. I'm the only one up here who's ever beat the NRA. Only one ever beat the NRA nationally. I'm the guy that brought the Brady Bill into focus and became law. And so that's number one. Number two, after Sandy Hook, a number of things happened. It went from a cause to a movement. Look what's happened now. Mothers, the organization, Mothers Against Violence, gun violence. We've seen what's happened again. Now we have all these young people marching on Washington, making sure that things are going to change. There has been a sea change. Those proposals I put forward for the president had over 50% of members of the NRA supporting them, and overwhelmingly the rest of the people supporting them. Now the numbers are much higher because they realize what I've been saying and we've all been saying is correct. Over 90% of the American people think we have to get assault weapons off the street, period. And we have to get buybacks and get them out of their basements. So the point is, things have changed, and things have changed a lot. And now what's happening is, and by the way, the way Beto handled, excuse me for saying Beto, what Congressman...
That's all right. Beto's good.
The way he handled what happened in his hometown is meaningful. To look in the eyes of those people, to see those kids, to understand those parents, you understand the heartache.
But this is
we
the problem.
are ready to do this.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. You did bring up assault weapons here. You did bring up assault weapons here, and many of you on this stage have talked about executive orders. Senator Harris, you have said that you would take executive action on guns within your first 100 days, including banning imports of AR-15 assault weapons.
That's right.
President Obama, after Sandy Hook, more than 23 executive actions, and yet here we all are today. In recent days, former Vice President Biden has said about executive orders, some really talented people are seeking the nomination. They said, I'm going to issue an executive order. Biden saying there's no constitutional authority to issue that executive order when they say I'm going to eliminate assault weapons, saying you can't do it by executive order any more than Trump can do things when he says he can do it by executive order. Does the vice president have a point there?
Some things you can, many things you can't.
Let's let the senator answer.
Well, I mean, I would just say, hey, Joe, instead of saying no, we can't, let's say yes, we can.
Let's be constitutional. We got a constitution.
And yes, we can, because I'll tell you something. The way that I think about this is I've seen more autopsy photographs than I care to tell you. I have attended more police officer funerals than I care to tell you. I have hugged more mothers of homicide victims than I care to tell you. And the idea that we would wait for this Congress, which has just done nothing, to act is just, it is overlooking the fact that every day in America, our babies are going to school to have drills, elementary, middle, and high school students, where they are learning about how they have to hide in a closet or crouch in a corner if there is a mass shooter roaming the hallways of their school. I was talking about this at one of my town halls, and this child, it was 8 years old probably, came up to me. It was like it was a secret between the two of us, and he tugged on my jacket and he said, I had to have one of those drills. It is traumatizing our children. El Paso, and Beto, God love you for standing so courageously in the midst of that tragedy. You know, people asked me in El Paso, they said, you know, because I have a long-standing record on this issue, they said, well, do you think Trump is responsible for what happened? And I said, well, look, I mean, obviously he didn't pull the trigger, but he's certainly been tweeting out the ammunition.
Senator Harris, thank you. Vice President Biden, do you still stand by what you said on an executive order?
What I said was, the question, speak to constitutional scholars. If, in fact, we could say, by the way, you can't own the following weapons, period. They cannot be sold anymore. Check with constitutional scholars. Now,
Mr. Vice President,
John,
thank you.
could I tell
Congressman
you what you
O'Rourke, I
could
want to
do
come to you on
in
this.
100 days?
I'm going to work down the row here, but I do want to come to Congressman O'Rourke because I know this is personal to you. El Paso is your hometown. Some on this stage have suggested a voluntary buyback for guns in this country. You've gone further. You said, quote, Americans who own AR-15s and AK-47s will have to sell them to the government, all of them. You know the critics call this confiscation. Are you proposing taking away their guns, and how would this work?
I am, if it's a weapon that was designed to kill people on a battlefield. If the high-impact, high-velocity round, when it hits your body, shreds everything inside of your body because it was designed to do that so that you would bleed to death on a battlefield and not be able to get up and kill one of our soldiers. When we see that being used against children, and in Odessa, I met the mother of a 15-year-old girl who was shot by an AR-15, and that mother watched her bleed to death over the course of an hour because so many other people were shot by that AR-15 in Odessa and Midland. There weren't enough ambulances to get to them in time. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
Congressman, thank you.
I want to say this. I'm listening to the people of this country. The day after I proposed doing that, I went to a gun show in Conway, Arkansas, to meet with those who are selling AR-15s and AK-47s and those who are buying those weapons. And you might be surprised, there was some common ground there. Folks who said, I would willingly give that up, cut it to pieces. I don't need this weapon to hunt, to defend myself. It is a weapon of war. So let's do the right thing, but let's bring everyone in America into the conversation, Republicans, Democrats, gun owners, and non-gun owners alike.
Can I make a point? Congressman, thank you. I want to bring in Senator Klobuchar on this because you've often talked about your uncle and the proud hunters back home in Minnesota. So I wanted to get your response to Congressman O'Rourke tonight. Where do you stand on mandatory gun buybacks?
I so appreciate what the congressman's been doing, and I want to remind people here that what unites us is so much bigger than what divides us. Everyone up here favors an assault weapon ban. Everyone up here favors magazine limitations, which, by the way, would have made a huge difference if that was in place in El Paso, in that store where all those ordinary people showed such extraordinary courage, and certainly in Dayton, Ohio, where in 30 seconds, one man guns down innocent people. The cops got there in 1 minute, and it still wasn't enough to save those people. That's what unites us. You know what else unites us? And I'll tell you this. What unites us is that right now, on Mitch McConnell's desk are 3 bills: universal background checks, closing the Charleston loophole, and passing my bill to make sure that domestic abusers don't get AK-47.
Senator
So
Klobuchar.
we want to get something done. And I personally think we should start with a voluntary buyback program. That's what I think, David. But I want to finish this because if you want action now, we got to send the message to Mitch McConnell. We can't wait until one of us gets in the White House. We have to pass those bills right now to get this done.
Senator
because we
Klobuchar.
cannot spare another innocent life.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to turn to Senator Booker because you have said just this week about guns and about the candidates on this stage that the differences do matter. Those were your words. You have argued if you need a license to drive a car in this country, you should have a license to buy a gun. Gun owners would not only have to pass a background check, they would have to obtain a federal license to buy a gun. This would require, as you know, Congress to pass legislation. If Democrats can't get universal background checks, how would you get this done? And can you name one Republican colleague of yours in the Senate right now who would be on board with this idea?
So background checks and gun licensing, these are agreed to by overwhelmingly the majority of Americans. 83% of Americans agree with licensing. This is the issue. Look, I grew up in the suburbs. It was about 20 years ago that I came out of my home when I moved to inner city Newark, New Jersey, and witnessed the aftermath of a shooting. It's one of the reasons why shooting after shooting after shooting in neighborhoods like mine for decades, this has been a crisis for me. It's why I was the first person to come out for gun licensing. And I'm happy that people like Beto O'Rourke are showing such courage now and coming forward and also now supporting licensing. But this is what I'm sorry about. I'm sorry that it had to take issues coming to my neighborhood or personally affecting Beto to suddenly make us demand change. This is a crisis of empathy in our nation. We are never going to solve this crisis if we have to wait for it to personally affect us or our neighborhood or our community before we demand action. You want to know how we get this done? We get this done by having a more courageous empathy where people don't wait for this hell to visit upon their communities. They stand up and understand the truth of what King said, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I will lead change on this issue because I have seen what the carnage creates in communities like mine, because we forget national shootings, these mass shootings are tragedies, but the majority of the homicide victims come from neighborhoods like mine. Nobody has ascended to the White House that will bring more personal passion on this issue. I will fight this and bring a fight to the NRA and the corporate gun lobby like they have never seen before.
Senator Booker, thank you. A quick follow-up, though, because Americans watching tonight know the reality of Congress in Washington. I asked, do you have a Republican colleague in the Senate who would be on board with this idea to get this done?
You know, if that was the attitude when Strom Thurmond had the longest filibuster ever on civil rights, if it was this idea that we can't get it done because of the situation in the Senate, I'm looking to lead a movement. The #1 reason why governments are formed is to protect the citizenry. Think about this. We have had more people die due to gun violence in my lifetime than every single war in this country combined from the Revolutionary War till now. This is not a side issue to me. It is a central issue to me. That is the kind of fight, because the majority of homicide victims, we have a mass shooting every single day in communities like mine. We must awaken a more courageous empathy in this country so that we stand together and fight together and overwhelm those Republicans who are not even representing their constituency, because the majority of Americans, the majority of gun owners agree with me, not the corporate gun lobby. It is time for a movement on this issue, and I will lead it.
Senator Booker, thank you. Senator Warren, I want to come to you next, because you have actually said in recent days that there are things you can get done with Republicans in the Senate. What can you get done on gun control?
So let's start by framing the problem the right way. We have a gun violence problem in this country. The mass shootings are terrible, but they get all the headlines. Children die every day on streets, in neighborhoods, on playgrounds. People die from violence, from suicide and domestic abuse. We have a gun violence problem in this country, and we agree on many steps we could take to fix it. My view on this is it's not going to be one and done on this. We're going to do it, and we're going to have to do it again, and we're going to have to come back some more until we cut the number of gun deaths in this country significantly. But here's the deal. The question we need to ask is, when we've got this much support across the country, 90% of Americans want to see us do, I like registration, want to see us do background checks, want to get assault weapons off the streets. Why doesn't it happen? And the answer is corruption, pure and simple. We have a Congress that is beholden to the gun industry. And unless we're willing to address that head on and roll back the filibuster, we're not going to get anything done on guns. I was in the United States Senate when 54 senators said, let's do background checks, let's get rid of assault weapons. And with 54 senators, it failed because of the filibuster. Until we attack the systemic problems, we can't get gun reform in this country. We've got to go straight against the industry, and we've got to change Congress so it doesn't just work for the wealthy and well-connected, so it works for the people.
Senator Warren, thank you. You bring up eliminating the filibuster, which means you would need simply a simple majority in a Republican Senate to get something done. I want to turn to Senator Sanders on this, because you've said before of this, if Donald Trump supports ending the filibuster, which he's talked about himself, you should be nervous. Would you support ending the filibuster?
No, but what I would support absolutely is passing major legislation, the gun legislation that people here are talking about, Medicare for all, climate change legislation that saves the planet. I will not wait for 60 votes to make that happen. And you could do it in a variety of ways. You could do that through budget reconciliation law. You have a vice president who will, in fact, tell the Senate what is appropriate and what is not, what is in order and what is not. But I want to get back to a point that Elizabeth made, and that, in fact, in terms of gun issues, picking up on Corey and Beto and everybody else, what we are looking at is a corrupt political system. And that means whether it is the drug companies or the insurance companies or the fossil fuel industry determining what's happening in Washington, or in this case, you got an NRA, which has intimidated the President of the United States and the Republican leadership. I am proud that year after year I had an F rating from the NRA. And as president, I will not be intimidated by the NRA.
Senator Sanders.
You will not be intimidated by the NRA. All right, Matt's heading out, so he's going to say goodbye.
Yep. Have a good one, chat. Hope you enjoyed it. Go Barry Sanders.
What did you think? What did you think? He's not somebody who has had any sort of exposure to any of these candidates before, any sort of exposure
I'm a very unbiased opinion. Never seeing any of them. They were pretty biased. I'm like Phil. I'm like signing up for Medicare, and I'm from Canada. Eh?
So, he clearly wasn't too sure how to feel about it, but I'm going to continue to watch the debates for a little bit, and I'll probably give my opinion and wrap it up here.
Let me know if anything else changes, if there's anything more interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like pretty biased, they're all on the same team. None of them are dominant. Trump's going to win. Go Trump.
All right, and so I'm going to probably wrap it up in about a half an hour or so. We'll see how much longer they keep these debates going, and Matt's heading on out, so we'll keep this going now, guys.
About deportations, why should Latinos trust you?
What Latinos should look at is comparing this president to the president we have is outrageous, number one. We didn't lock people up in cages. We didn't separate families. We didn't do all of those things, number one. Number two, by the time this is the president who came along with the DACA program. No one had ever done that before. This is the president who sent legislation to the desk saying he wants to find a pathway for the 11 million undocumented in the United States of America. This is the president who's done a great deal. So I'm proud to have served with him. What I would do as president is several more things, because things have changed. I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come. I would change the order that the president just changed, saying women who were being beaten and abused could no longer claim that as a reason for asylum. And by the way, retrospectively, you know, the 25th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act is up. The Republican Congress has not reauthorized it. Let's put pressure on them to pass the Violence Against Women Act now. But then
yeah,
we'll
but
go back.
you didn't answer the question.
Well,
the question
I
is,
did
did you make a mistake with those deportations?
The president did the best thing that was able to be done at the time.
How about you?
I'm the vice president of the United States.
Secretary Castro, would you want to respond to Vice President Biden?
You know,
let me put this in context, because your party controlled the White House and Congress in 2009 and didn't pass immigration reform. And this broke a promise made by President Barack Obama to Latinos. So why should voters trust Democrats now? I mean, now it is even more difficult, as you know, because you need Republican votes in the Senate. So are you willing, for instance, to give up DACA, or give up a path to citizenship, or even agree to build a wall in order to legalize 10.5 million undocumented immigrants?
Jorge, thank you very much for that question. And look, I agree that Barack Obama was very different from Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a dark heart when it comes to immigrants. He built his whole political career so far on scapegoating and fear-mongering and otherizing migrants, and that's very different for Barack Obama. But my problem with Vice President Biden, and Corey pointed this out last time, is every time something good about Barack Obama comes up, he says, oh, I was there, that's me too. And then every time somebody questions part of the administration that we were both part of, he says, well, that was the president. I mean, he wants to take credit for Obama's work, but not have to answer to any questions. I mean,
Vice President Biden, you have,
I don't get that.
You have 45 seconds.
Let me just say,
what I said.
Let me just say that I was the first candidate in early April to put forward an immigration plan. You know why? Because I'm not afraid of Donald Trump on this issue. I'm not going to backpedal. I'm not going to pretend like I don't have my own vision for immigration. So we're not going to give up DACA. We're not going to give up protections for anybody. I believe that on January 20th, 2021, we're going to have a Democratic president. We're going to throw out Mitch McConnell and John Cornyn and have a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House, and we're going to pass immigration reform within the first 100 days.
Vice President, 45 seconds.
I did not say I don't stand. I stand with Barack Obama all 8 years, good, bad, and indifferent. That's where I stand. I did not say I did not stand with him.
Okay, Senator Warren, hundreds of children have been separated from their parents at the border, and recently in Mississippi, we saw the largest immigration rate in a decade. You want to replace ICE, the agency in charge of rounding up undocumented immigrants. So how would you deal with the millions of immigrants who arrive legally but overstay their visas? And how would you stop hundreds of thousands of Central Americans who want to migrate to the U.S.?
Well, I start with a statement of principles, and that is, in this country, immigration does not make us weaker. Immigration makes us stronger. I want to see us expand legal immigration and create a pathway to citizenship for our dreamers, but also for their grandparents and for their cousins, for people who overstayed student visas, and for people who came here to work in the fields. I want to have a system that is a path to citizenship that is fair and achievable. Down at the border, we've got to rework this entirely. A system right now that cannot tell the difference in the threat posed by a terrorist, a criminal, and a 12-year-old girl is not a system that is keeping us safer, and it is not serving our values.
Mr. Yang.
I want to add one more part on this, because I think we have to look at all the pieces. Why do we have a crisis at the border? In no small part because we have withdrawn help from people in Central America who are suffering. We need to restore that help. We need to help establish and reestablish the rule of law so that people don't feel like they have to flee for their lives. We have a crisis that Donald Trump has created and hopes to profit from politically. We have to have the courage to stand up and fight back.
Mr. Yang, it is true that in the last few years we have seen the most severe anti-immigrant measures, from putting kids in cages to limiting asylum for people fleeing gangs and domestic violence. But it is also true that about 1 million immigrants enter the U.S. legally every year. So are you willing to raise the number of legal immigrants from 1 million to 2 million per year? And should there be a merit system, as President Trump wants?
So, yeah, I'm sorry, did you ask me or?
Mr. Yang.
I already said it, okay. Sorry.
My father grew up on a peanut farm in Asia with no floor, and now his son is running for president. That is the immigration story that we have to be able to share with the American people. If you look at our history, almost half of Fortune 500 companies were founded by their immigrants or children of immigrants, and rates of business formation are much higher in immigrant communities. We have to say to the American people, immigrants are positive for our economic and social dynamism, and I would return the level of legal immigration to the point it was under the Obama-Biden administration. I think we have to compete for talent, and I am the opposite of Donald Trump in many ways. He says build a wall. I'm going to say to immigrants, come to America, because if you come here, your son or daughter can run for president. The water is great, and this is where you want to build a company, build a family, and build a life. This country has been a magnet for human capital for generations. If we lose that, we lose something integral to our continued success, and that is where I would lead as president.
Alcalde Pitt, tengo una pregunta para usted.
Gracias.
Alcalde Pitt, 8 out of 10 Latinos in Texas fear another mass shooting targeting them. This is according to a new Univision poll. President Trump has called Mexican immigrants rapists and killers, tried to ban Muslims from entering the country, and separated children from their parents. His supporters have chanted, build the wall and send her back. Do you think that people who support President Trump and his immigration policies are racist?
Anyone who supports this is supporting racism. Este es racismo y es sencillo. The only people, though, who actually buy into this president's hateful rhetoric around immigrants are people who don't know any. We have an opportunity to build an American majority around immigration reform. In my community, a group of conservative Republicans rallied around an individual, a beloved local individual who was deported when he went into ICE to try to get his paperwork sorted out, because they never thought it would happen to him. In some of the most conservative rural areas of Iowa, I have seen communities that embraced immigration grow, and it's why part of my plan for revitalizing the economies of rural America includes community renewal visas that would allow cities and towns and counties that are hurting not only for jobs but for population to embrace immigration, as we have in my city. You know, the only reason that South Bend is growing right now, after years of shrinking, is immigration. It's one of the reasons we acted, not waiting for Washington, to create city-issued municipal IDs so that people, regardless of immigration status, in our city had the opportunity to have the benefits of identification. We have an opportunity to actually get something done, but we cannot allow this to continue to be the same debate with the same arguments and the same clever lines, often among the same people, since the last real reform happened in the 1980s. We have to actually engage the American majority around the opportunities for not just growth in small communities, but our values, values of welcome, values of faith that all argue for us to manage this humanely and in a way that marries our values with our laws.
Congresista Beto O'Rourke, una pregunta para usted. In an interview 8 months ago, you were asked what to do with the so-called overstayers, people who come with a visa and then stay. And you said, I don't know. Do you have an answer now?
I do, and if you read the rest of that article in the Washington Post, I talked about harmonizing our entry-exit system with Mexico in the same way that we do with Canada. I think that could help us to keep a handle on visa overstays, but I think the larger question that we're trying to get at is how do we rewrite this country's immigration laws in our own image, in the image of Houston, Texas, the most diverse city in the United States of America, in the image of El Paso, Texas, one of the safest cities in the United States of America. Safe not despite the fact that we are a city of immigrants, safe because we are a city of immigrants. Conocemos que si queremos asegurar nuestras comunidades y nuestro país, necesitamos tratar cada persona con respeto y dignidad. I will lead an effort to make sure that we rewrite our immigration laws in that way. Never cage another child. Make sure that there is accountability and justice for the 7 lives lost under our care and our custody, but also face the fact that Democrats and Republicans alike voted to build a wall that has produced thousands of deaths of people trying to cross to join family or to work a job, that we have been part of deporting people, hundreds of thousands just in the Obama administration alone, who posed no threat to this country, breaking up their families. Democrats have to get off the back foot. We have to lead on this issue because we know it is right. Legalize America. Begin with those more than 1 million dreamers. Make them U.S. citizens right now in their true home country.
Gracias.
And extend that to their parents, their sisters, and their brothers, and ensure that we have a legal, safe, orderly system to come to this country and add to our greatness here.
Thank you, George.
Jorge, thank you. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, national security, foreign policy, the impact on American jobs and U.S. troops.
Hello. How's everybody doing in the chat there? This is probably where I'm going to end the stream, but I may continue to watch the rest of the debates live tonight. I may just look up the rest of it tomorrow morning. I have a few things that I need to do. I haven't even eaten dinner yet. It's getting pretty late, but it's been interesting so far. It hasn't been too wild. It hasn't been as wild as some of the other debates that we've seen. There hasn't been any eye bleeds from dirty old Uncle Joe, but you know, you never know what you're gonna see when you're watching a live event such as this. And I figured, hey, why not just get together and discuss what we're watching? So, or discuss, if everybody's watching this, if everybody in the community that I'm currently in is discussing this and talking about it, why not just open it up? They didn't have a chat in this live stream, so why not have a chat here for us, right? I truly did not learn anything other than the fact that most of the candidates are for Medicare for all, other than Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden. I think it's Joe Biden. Who cares? They all pretty much have the exact same ideas and they're running on the same campaigns. I'm not a big fan of anyone, but anyone that we've seen here, I'd like to see a little bit more, and I'm going to watch the rest of the debate. Obviously, you need to get a full perspective, but I'd like to know what you guys are thinking and how you felt about what we just witnessed, what we just watched, and what you're feeling, how you're moving towards the candidate that is getting your support, not necessarily your vote, like we said earlier. That's a secret. That's gotta stay within you. But regardless of how you feel about that, I'm not gonna pressure people into telling me who they vote for. Really, the only thing that I want to know is who's getting your support right now, and who could you see potentially doing a good job, if any of these 10 candidates from the Democratic Party. But that's where I'm going to end it. I'm going to leave a link to the stream that we're watching right now in the chat, because if you'd like to go and watch it for yourself, I'm not going to stop you from doing that. I'm probably going to be there as well, but there is no chat, right? So thank you for that. I appreciate the beard comment. yeah, I liked hanging out with you guys tonight, and we'll do more of these in the future. I actually wasn't even aware that this debate was going on tonight. I was let known by one of my lovely members in Discord, right? Shout out to Discord. So come on into Discord and hang out, chill, talk about the hard conversations that aren't necessarily being talked about on YouTube. And I always love hearing from you guys. I love hearing what your ideas are and what you guys think are interesting topics that are going around in the news today or in your atmosphere, I guess, because everybody's talking about something different. So, I guess with that being said, my name's Elder. This has been the Open Debate. Be your own hero, kids.